like to invite all our candidates up to the stage, please. Your name tags are here in alphabetical order. Okay, before we begin, I just want to lay the ground rules for everyone. This is an annual event so that our senior population can make an informed decision when they vote on Tuesday, April 5th. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes to make their presentation. Presentations will begin at one end of the table and continue on down the table. After each candidate makes their presentation, there will be a question and answer period. Questions from the audience are limited to two per person. Questions must be direct towards a candidate. No debates are allowed. Let's see, you have 5 minutes. We're going to have Nancy giving the signal. I got the hook. You'll be fine. Again, thank you all for coming. And I think I'm going to start down at this end of the table because Mr. Visconti was telling me that he always got the last end of the deal. So, Mike, if you'd like, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. 5 minutes, Mike. Okay?
I do not recall that conversation, by the way.
Make sure you speak right into the microphone.
I will, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Visconti. I am a candidate for one of the 2 open seats on the school committee. I feel that I would make a good candidate or a good school committee member for a number of reasons. I am very interested in turning out a quality student from our schools. I have no children in the system, and I believe that is definitely an asset, because having no children in the system, I can be far more objective in my voting on the committee. I do not have to be concerned about how an issue might positively or negatively affect my child in the system, because I do not have any children in the system. I think one of the things that separates me from the other candidates is that I am while I want to see our children get a good education, I am very budget conscious. I want to watch every dime that is spent, and I realize that some of our seniors, maybe some of you that are here today, are struggling to get by on a very limited income, and to then add the burden of excessive taxes because of our school system expenses, I believe is not fair to the seniors. So I will watch every dime, and I will only vote to spend money that is absolutely necessary, all the time keeping the seniors, once again, who are struggling, in my mind, and how spending that money might affect them. Thank you.
Let's see, my name is Scott Vecchiola. I ran unsuccessfully last year for this post, school committee. I believe running again makes me a good candidate, since I serve on the Vertebral Board of Trustees, and I want to keep helping out the town, and if I get elected, I will work for you, the taxpayer, make sure your money gets spent wisely. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Pellegrini. First off, Sue, I'd like to thank you for having me here today. I currently serve as the chairman on our Parks Commission here in Milford. A little bit background on me. I've been here for about 28 years now. I moved here from Watertown, but this is really my home. I've taken a real interest in many things within the community. I currently serve as our Milford High School baseball coach. I've been there for 14 years now. I serve on many school councils in town, the Brookside School, Shining Star School, and Woodland School. I just like to continue the opportunity to continue what I'm doing. I'm kind of a hands-on guy when it comes to the parks. I have the great opportunity of working at a store in Milford at Oliva's Market, which he only uses me on the weekends, which means I have all week to drive around town and check out our parks, inspect our parks, and make sure they're operating in a safe and and playful manner for our kids and everyone in the community. With that said, I'll wait to answer some questions that you might have. I appreciate it for having me here.
Good morning, Sue. Thank you also to you and your staff for putting this event on. It's always very good, and it's a good opportunity for folks to get a chance to learn about people that they're going to be voting for that really make very important decisions that guide our town onward to the future. I'm Brian Murray. I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 15 years. And during those 15 years, I'd just like to talk a little bit about some of the things that were done here in the town of Milford. 15 years ago, this building was not here. If you were here 15 years ago, you'd be standing on a contaminated waste site. There was an oil tank that was left in the ground from the former shoe factory that was torn down. The soil was contaminated with oil, and the oil tank was probably right where the kitchen was. And I know that because I was part of the committee that worked very hard to make this building a reality. With the late Ruth Ann Bleakney, who did a wonderful job driving this for the town of Milford, we made it a priority to have a first-class senior center for the seniors of our community. One of the things that we did to open up and expand everybody's awareness was a bus trip. We had about 55 seniors, and we took a bus trip, and we went to Danvers, we went to Beverly, and we went to Saugus, and we saw 3 separate senior centers, and they put all of ours to shame. If you remember, the senior center used to be the little school building on Winter Street. It opened up people's eyes as to what other communities do for their seniors, and we felt that our seniors in Milford deserved at least that and more. So we were able to come back and get the town support and build this beautiful building that is so active and vital to the seniors of our community. 15 years ago, we didn't have a bike trail. In the mid-1990s, I was contacted by Bob Buckley and Reno DeLuzio to help out and build a bike trail. And we've worked on that. I think it's the best bike trail in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And one of the things that I made sure occurred, and that was an amendment to the project, was a spur off of Main Street to the back of the senior center so that seniors would be able to access the bike trail right from the senior center. 15 years ago, we had a depleted and decrepit football field. My son played football in high school, and it was disappointing to me that my mother couldn't even go see him play because the area was so deficient. Employees from the school department asked me as a selectman to get involved because school committee members were ignoring their request to do over that facility. So I appointed a committee. We worked very hard. We did a wonderful project. There's a community athletic complex that rivals a small college right now. We have an artificial turf field, state-of-the-art track, lighting, bleachers, tennis courts, softball field. That's one of the things that I did in the 15 years as a member of the Board of Selectmen and part of this community. And right now, we're working on the Armory. And I think some of you remember what the Armory was to the town of Milford. It served as a youth center for many years. Representative Parenti, Representative Fernandez did a great job in securing that building from the state. And now we're updating it because the inside essentially had no work done to it in over 100 years. So now we're reusing Milford's history. We're retrofitting it to the needs of today, and we're making sure that the seniors are going to have access to that state-of-the-art gymnasium in the morning hours when the kids aren't there. Those are some of the major projects that I've worked on outside of my daily work as a selectman. As a selectman, I've tried to work very hard for the community, make decisions in the best interest in the community, and I ask for your continued support to do so. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Also want to thank Sue for organizing this event and thank all of you for taking time out of your day to come out and learn a little bit more about the candidates so that you can make an informed decision at the polls. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joe Marias, and like the other candidates here, or many of the other candidates here. I was born and raised in Milford. My wife Allison and I have a daughter, Amelia, who's currently in the 5th grade at Stacy Middle School. I'm the current vice chairman of the school committee, and I've really enjoyed my first term on the committee. I think I've learned a lot over the course of the past 3 years. And this is a very exciting time for the Milford Public Schools. We have the Woodland School project that's nearing completion. It's going to be coming online this fall. We're all very, very excited about. Once that school comes online, we're going to be moving the kids from the old school over to the new school. But in addition to that, we're also going to be transitioning some of the students from Middle School East down to Stacy, and from Stacy over to Woodland. So it's really a big undertaking that we're going to be embarking on over the next few months. In addition to the Woodland School project, as many of you probably know, we're also transitioning the leadership. Our long-term superintendent, Dr. Tremblay, is going to be moving on to another role in Weston, and as a result, we promoted the assistant superintendent, Dr. Kevin McIntyre, into the superintendent position, and promoted Craig Consigli, who was principal at Woodland, up into the assistant position as well. So there's a lot going on in our schools right now. It's a very exciting time, and I feel that the experience that I've gained over the past 3 years and the relationships that I've built would be extremely beneficial. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Susan. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jim Ligor. I am a lifelong resident of Milford, 45 years, born and raised. I also am a graduate of the class of 1988 from Milford High.
My wife and I have 2 boys in the school district. My son Joshua, who is 15, and my son Jacob, who is 11. One is a freshman at Milford High, and the other is 5th grade at Stacy Middle School.
I have been active in town politics or town civics for the last 10 years. I've been on the Milford Personnel Board, 5 years of that as chairman. And my goal really is to try to bring back the branding behind Milford and Milford schools. I spend a lot of time talking to parents on the fields and the courts, and we have an issue in town currently with school choice. We have a lot of kids leaving the district, and quite personally, it saddens me as a graduate of Milford High. So my goal is to try to increase, improve, and further develop the brand and brand equity behind Milford High, and to try to bring it back to what it was, try to bring those students back into the district, and try to help improve and restore some of the school pride that was there when I graduated. Thank you very much.
You can tell that Jim's a musical performer. Show must go on attitude that he took when the microphone stopped working. I think it's a pretty impressive thing. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming here today. My name is Patrick Holland. I am a candidate for selectman here in Milford. I am a 5th generation Milfordian. My father, George Holland, has operated a law practice here in town for 45 years. My mother, Donna Holland, is a retired kindergarten teacher, so your children or grandchildren may have had a child in her class for a while back. And this is a place that I love. This is a place that I am raising my 3 children. My wife, Alyssa, she is a school teacher in Milford as well. She's an 8th grade science teacher. I'm not a seasoned politician. I am a member of the school committee. I did serve on the school committee for 6 years. And the reason I volunteered to serve on the school committee is because this town is important to me. And I want to make sure that we're doing the right things for our children, we're doing the right things for our town. So my children want to stay here, so my children want to live here. So 30 years from now, when I'm 70 years old, 80 years old, and I'm sitting at my kitchen table, my children come home for Sunday dinner, and I get to see all of them, and I get to see my grandchildren. And that really is the focus of why I'm running for the Board of Selectmen. I think that we focused on a lot of very big projects in town, and I think that as your selectmen, I'll focus on some of the things that we haven't been focusing on recently. I'd like to focus on working to fix the traffic issues that are really plaguing our town, to make it very difficult for us to get across town. I'd like to work on bringing some vibrancy back to downtown. I've worked for 14 years in marketing and in development, specifically retail development. And so I have a lot of experience helping independent business owners make their businesses more successful. I have a lot of experience helping business locate in places that they can be productive and they can be profitable. And I know what businesses need to succeed. And so it's that type of experience that I will bring to the Board of Selectmen. And honestly, it's a type of job experience that doesn't exist on the board today. And so, if elected to the Board of Selectmen, I pledge to work on some of those issues that really affect our quality of life. If we can fix some of our traffic issues, if we can bring back some of the businesses, some of not only the retail shops we buy stores, but also the retail banks on Main Street, perhaps some opportunities for entertainment. I think that we can inject some life into the core of our town, and I think it's going to help our town be a closer community. And really, it's all about community. It's all about making Milford a place where my children and your children and all of our grandchildren want to raise their families. So I ask for your vote on April 5th. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I hope I can count on your support for my nomination and candidacy to serve as trustee on the town libraries board. Many of you don't know me, and I thought it'd be helpful to share a bit of my history and qualifications. I've been living here since August of 2013, so I am definitely a newcomer. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, where I graduated from Portland State University with a bachelor's degree and a dual major. The first is in international studies, focusing on Latin America, y por supuesto hablo español, if you speak Spanish. The second is in political science, with a minor in sociology. Since then, I developed my career with various unions, including in management roles, where I continuously sought to improve conditions for a variety of state, healthcare, property service, and communication workers. So I have had a chance to develop relationships with stakeholders in professional and community settings. Speaking to qualifications, as a trustee, I was previously appointed and then re-elected as secretary-treasurer of a small union. In my current capacity for the organization I work with, which is the Association of Employees of the Education Foundation, located at WGBH PBS, I oversee all accounts payable and receivable, balance sheets, as well as the oversight of the fiscal year-end audit review. These positions with increased responsibilities have given me a keen eye for oversight of fiscal transactions. But I think to share a little bit more of a personal connection, the main reason that I'm running for Board of Library Trustees is ever since my family moved here, we've been very warmly received by everybody in Milford. And it's rare to find the level of involvement in communities and towns that I've witnessed here. I've been given the opportunity to lend my skills and expertise in other communities, but I've never been able to do that for the town that I've lived in. And I finally feel like we've found home. So I really am hopeful that I'll be able to connect and serve every great person here in Milford and try to identify how, in the role of library trustee, how I can help to serve to identify where are opportunities to provide cross-generational support. I had the pleasure of meeting a lady who, she's a senior citizen here in Milford, and although my son currently attends Memorial and I have a natural connection to youth programs, I was really amazed by the question she asked me, which was to do a little bit of checking into the town library, specifically about the microfilms, the machines, because she was unfamiliar how to access it. And so when I stopped in, everybody at the reference desk was amazing, but it really highlighted that there is a need for programs. There is an interest in genealogical research and knowing your roots. And that's something that I think can relate to various generations. So I hope I can count on your support on April 5th on Election Day. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
This is a first for me, using a microphone. I've got the deep voice. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank Sue and her entire staff for having this forum. And I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here this morning. My name is Barbara Clement, and I'm a candidate for re-election as constable for the town of Milford. The constable is the person nobody wants to see coming to their door. The constable serves all legal documents, whether there be evictions, whether they be divorce papers, child support modification, anything that the courts say has to get served, gets served. Now, I am really excited about being a candidate once again for re-election as constable. 6 years ago in 2010, with your help and most importantly your vote, you elected me to the position of constable as the first woman in the town's history to do so. When I ran, I was told it wasn't a position for a woman. I laughed. I did 30 years in the Army, and I heard that every single day of my career. It's not a job for a woman. Guess what? Yes, it is. I have served papers. When I was elected, I made a promise that all services would be done with tact, diplomacy, confidentiality, and that they would not be the topic of discussion at the local gin joint or the coffee shop in the morning. I have held fast and true to that promise. I was raised by James and Rose Tessicini Clement. They brought me up to have those common core goals, that if you give your word, you live up to it. I'm asking you once again for your consideration and your vote on Tuesday, April 5th. And as you can see, I'm the only candidate for constable that showed up today, same as last Wednesday night at St. Mary's Parish Center. This is not something you can take for granted. If you don't show up for these forums, you're taking granted the vote that you all hold so dearly to your hearts. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is John Burns. I am a candidate for re-election to the Board of Library Trustees here in Milford. And I thank everyone for this opportunity to speak before you. I thank Sue, her staff, and I thank all of you who are here in this assembly this morning. In coming here, there were a couple of thoughts that crossed my mind. One, after what happened this morning in Belgium, it's just so very important that we live democracy as we are this morning, that we live that democratic ideal that we have a right to vote and we have a right to be in assemblies of this kind. Another thought that crossed my mind in coming here is that this building was brought about because of the sacrifices of people like Teddy O'Brien, a Milford firefighter who died over the weekend, who had a very big role in building this building. And then I'm looking down into the assembly here, and I see my very good friend, a retired Milford firefighter himself, Nick DiMaria, whose wife Eleanor served so very capably as a member of the staff at the Milford Town Library, both in the old building where Memorial Hall is and in the new facility. And so I'm looking at people who have really done so much for this community, thinking about people who have done so much for this community. This community means a great deal to me. And the Milford Town Library means a great deal to me as well. Throughout the last 7 years as a member of the Board of Library Trustees, I have been able to maintain the promise that I made when I was first elected 7 years ago. One, we would remain a safe library, safe from various problems that have plagued many other libraries. And I think we have achieved this goal very successfully. Our library director, our staff, and the Milford Police Department and Milford Fire Department have been very key elements in all this. Second thing, that we would absolutely maintain our certification from the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. And that we have. That's very important, because if you're a Milfordian and you live in a town that doesn't have a certified library, you can be frozen out of being able to use other libraries in the state if they are certified. So it's a very important thing, maintaining that certification. It also guarantees that we're going to get funds from the state in being able to run this library. Then over and beyond that, we have been a scandal-free library. We haven't had any scandals. There have been scandals in other libraries in the state, but we haven't had those scandals so far, knock on wood. Hopefully, we don't have them anytime in the future either, whether I'm elected or not elected. Now, in the time that I've been on the Board of Library Trustees here in Milford, we have seen a major upgrade in our technology, to the point where I think that our technology is unrivaled in the area in terms of the public libraries. We have also seen a great and significant addition to our library of e-related materials, electronic-related materials, even though better than 60% of our collection remains of the print kind, the more traditional print kind. And another thing that we have done in the Milford Town Library that's of great importance to you is to maintain the building well. We have new carpeting throughout the building, we have new furniture throughout the building, and we also just redid the roof a couple of years ago to serve hopefully for the next 30, 40 years without any problems. And throughout all of this, we have worked, and I have certainly worked very hard to make sure that your money would be well spent. And with our excellent library director, her excellent staff, and the people who have served with me in my 7 years on the Library Board of Trustees, we have been able to get the job done. We have done it on time, on budget, always with you and your interest in mind. And I would appreciate your vote for re-election as a library trustee. Thank you.
I'd like to open this up for some questions. As I said before, you'll have the opportunity to ask 2 questions. No debates, please. So if you have any comments, make sure they're in the form of a question. There's got to be a question out here. Gail, you always have a question.
I knew you'd do that. Actually, I do have a question to Mr. Holland. I don't know about anybody else, but I am noticing a disturbing trend in town lately that when a position becomes available, it's basically not what you know, but who you know. And I'd like to know if you are elected and have the opportunity to appoint somebody, would you go by their ability rather than their relationships?
You know, I think that's probably one of my biggest benefits. So, I'm not a political insider. If I'm elected, it's not going to be politics as usual on the Board of Selectmen. I think that what we've seen over the past number of years, many years, it's more about relationships with individual select people as opposed to who's the person that's most qualified for the job. So I personally feel that the politics as usual really needs to end. And as someone who really isn't a seasoned politician, I think that I would probably offer the town the best opportunity to really just appoint the most qualified candidate.
Anyone else? Yep.
It also is for Patrick Holland. Can you please tell me if you have any specific ideas for moving the traffic along the Main Street? Because people have looked into that with the bypass road previously, and I don't know what is available.
You know, I think like many of the problems that face our town today, sort of the same old solutions that we've been trying, they're not going to work. And I think that we've seen that if we keep doing the same things that we've been doing over and over and over and over again, we're not going to see any improvements. And so I think probably the most important thing that we can do is try to think outside the box. I think that we can't wait for state money to come in and fund a project. I think that we need to take action ourselves. And we need to sort of grab onto the issue with both hands and do everything that we can to dig into that problem, to find the best solutions for it. And so I think that involves all members of the community. I think it involves all of our public safety departments. And I think it involves taking the time to really find the solution that's going to work the best, as opposed to sort of waiting for some source of funding to try and fix that problem. And so, I would really do everything within my power to try and get a handle on it.
Hi, how you doing? Ed Roth. I'd like to ask Brian, could you go over some of the stuff we've done as far as the traffic goes? I know there was a lot of work done on Main Street as far as over the past several years, and some was done using federal money, and we looked into detours and routing traffic differently, but there was also associated with land taking and everything else. So maybe you could give us a little information on what we've done so far and how it's gone.
Yeah. A couple of things. First of all, if you're talking about using town funds as opposed to state money or federal money that might be available, then what that means is taxes are going to go up, because that's going right on the tax bill. Your real estate tax is going to go up. There's no other way to get that money. Now, the Main Street project, which has had some discussion, let's talk about this just for a couple of minutes. The genesis of this was back in 2002. John Seaver, who was a selectman at the time and now heads up the Citizens Committee, asked the state to look at the 7 major intersections on Main Street. It was a $700,000 project. The lights were old, they were in disrepair, the timing was wrong. The state got involved in that project, and as the years went on, examined it closer, found out that the intersections did not comply with federal or state regulations in terms of pedestrian and handicap accessibility. The intersections did not allow for the free flow of traffic, so the state stepped forth and paid $3.5 million to revitalize all 7 major intersections and the Main Street. Now that project was done in accordance with the planning board, the planning department, the highway surveyor, the police department, the fire department. All of these departments work cooperatively with the state to bring this project forward. The nice thing is that the state paid the money so the townspeople of Milford did not have to. Now if you don't take the state money, okay, that's fine, but guess what? That doesn't change the federal and state regulations in place for how you build and design roads. So if you didn't go forward with that project, you'd be left with the worst of both worlds. You got to pay for it out of the town budget, it's going to increase taxes for all of us, and you still got to comply with the state and federal safety standards that are there. So that project went forth. Those intersections are all revitalized. There's state-of-the-art lighting, state-of-the-art accessibility. It has increased pedestrian traffic along Main Street. And in terms of some of the problems that I hear, you know, there's a no right turn or something like that, we have been able to target some of these intersections through the police department to change some of that signage. So, you know, from an overall perspective, that has been a very successful project for the town of Milford at no cost to the residents.
This is one question for each of the school committee nominees. I'd like to know what, if anything, is being done about English as a second language in our schools. Are there any programs? Are there any planned? Is anything being done, and is anything being planned? I guess that's my question for the 3 of you.
You think there's four of us? I'll start it off if that's okay. We actually have the ELL program is a program that I take a lot of pride in here in Milford. Both my parents immigrated here from Portugal, and I was an ELL student when I entered Milford Public Schools, and I was an ELL student through the 3rd grade. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and something that I'm really focused on. Sorry. We have an extremely well-run ELL program in Milford schools today. Jen Lancaster is the ELL director that oversees that program, and she's one of the most knowledgeable and most passionate people you'll ever speak to regarding the English Language Learner program. In fact, she's a resource that's used by the state frequently whenever they're looking for guidance or advice on certain issues.
We've made a substantial investment in the ELL program over the last 2 years. We've gone through a phased approach to make sure that we have the proper resources in place to meet the needs of our students. And so I think today we're in a very good spot. What does create a challenge for us is the rate at which the ELL population has increased over the years. So if you were to go back 5 years, we had 250 ELL students 5 years ago. Today we have 500 over the course of just the past 5 years. So that creates a strain on the budget when you have students that are coming in throughout the year, because the budget itself, the money that we receive from the state, is based on your student population at the beginning of the year. So when you have new students coming in, we don't have the funding for those students until the following year. And last year, John Fernandez had written some legislation to try and address that, to create a circuit breaker so that we would get funding immediately as the students came in. And that's something I need to research a little bit more to see where we stand with that. But overall, I feel I have a lot of confidence in the teachers and in the staff we have in place and in the services we have in place to meet their needs.
Thank you. Yes. The ELL programs, along with other programs, are very important in our school systems. But please keep in mind, we cannot let these programs detract from the basic reason that we go to school, and that is for academics, basic academics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'm sure you're all aware of that. We need to work to turn out a better student out of our school systems. Right now, we cannot compete with the students that are being turned out in our surrounding towns. So I am looking to try to enhance our basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, or math programs, so that the students that we turn out from our high school can go out into the world and compete with the students that the surrounding towns are turning out. Now, I won't go into all of the details and statistics with respect to the towns that are turning out a better student, but if you would like to talk to me after this program is over, I'd be happy to review all that information with you. Keep in mind, a lot of these programs are mandated by state and the federal government. They are unfunded, and every program we add that is unfunded has to be added to your taxes. I'm not saying we should not institute these programs, because number one, we have to, but number two, yes, we should. We should try to help out all of our students, our English-speaking students and our non-English-speaking students. But we have to take care of not only our special students, but we also have to take care of our typical student and make sure that they are given the education that I believe all of you want them to have. Thank you.
I believe it's a great service, ELL. You have Joe Morris that came through there, Al Pereira, another Milford resident that came through there, the ELL program. And I believe the teachers and Jen up Lancaster's doing a great job up there. We got to keep supporting that, because they got to learn English, so the kids that are coming in become good Milford citizens. Thank you.
I'll just echo what Joe's sentiment. The program has come a long way. Jen is doing a fantastic job up there. What I will add is that obviously Milford has a very diverse background, and we continue to have a very diverse student base. With that being said, in relation to standardized testing, we don't compare in some areas to other towns. However, I think that the ELL program is doing a fantastic job to level that playing field, but if you extrapolate some of our top performers and benchmark them across districts in the area, you'll find out that our top performing student base is on par or above area towns. So the curriculum does work, the ELL curriculum does work, and we're working to expand that further as Milford's diversity continues to expand.
Thank you. Edith?
Two questions. First, I don't really know what a library trustee does, so I'd like to learn that. And also, I'm very interested in English as a second language, and I would like to know who to contact to volunteer my time with your program in the high school.
Thank you, Edith.
Edith is one of our volunteers. She's presently teaching an older Italian woman to speak English. So volunteer right here.
So I know that John has elaborated his 7 years serving as trustee, and I'm sure he will go into the work that he's done. But I mean, for any organization, the role of trustee really lies on the fiscal oversight. So I have been in positions where I've served as a trustee member. So the concepts are similar. You want to make sure that the money is being spent appropriately, that everything is balancing out. So for example, with the audit reviews. With this particular position, for me personally, I feel that I do have the skills to be able to meet that. But I think in addition to the financial skill set, I think it also helps when there is an added passion, when there is a desire for the mission of the organization as well and to expand it. So I know that you've just expressed your interest in serving in being able to volunteer to teach English as a second language. I understand that the library currently has an ESL program. So you and I both share that interest because I just signed up as a volunteer as well. Annie at the reference desk heads that up. In addition to the ELL programs that currently exist within the school system. So I hope that that answers the question, but I will also pass this along to John to expand.
Thank you. Thank you. The basic function of a library trustee is to maintain a certain discipline within the overall body of the library by, in effect, overseeing what happens at the library. I am not a library trustee that believes in micromanagement. I believe more in macro management of the library. When you have a very capable library director like we have in Sue Edmonds, she's able to do an awful lot of the stuff that we want her to do, that we would like her to do, and she does it very well. We have a very capable library director in Sue Edmonds. In turn, she's aided by her staff. The many people who work at that library who do a great job in maintaining what she wants to be done because it's what we would like her to do. Now, it's more a policy management role than anything else. It's also a fiscal management role because every meeting that we have of the Library Board of Trustees, we're told where we are budgetarily, where our budget rests, where the money has been going. At virtually every week we go in and we sign the bills. And we know what is being paid out and for what it's being paid out for. Those are the things that we do. And we work very hard with sometimes outside groups to help the library. We have been very, very blessed, by the way, as a library, by way of a lot of corporations helping us out, doing wonderful things for us. And we as library trustees have to be grateful for that and make sure that whatever we get in terms of external help, that we very, very definitely return to these people in gratitude by doing exactly what that they would like us to do with that money, with those items that they give us. It's a very interesting thing. I think the Library Board of Trustees and the school committee, they tend to have a very similar role, one to another. They really do. And it's not to be considered unusual, because look at it. We are both educators. I have said about the library is our greatest cultural repository, and it's also the veritable educator of an entire community. It's one of the most democratic functions we have, that the library allows you to learn things that you would never have known otherwise. So I oversee that, and I think that as Jessica has indicated, there is an importance. There is an importance in terms of maintaining a fiscal watchdog mentality. And I do that. I do that. I want to make sure that every buck that comes into the library is very well spent. And so far, it has been. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Bruce Meacham, and I'd like to ask each of the candidates for school committee to comment on Common Core.
I guess I'll start things off. So I know there's a lot of debate out there over Common Core and as well as the different tests, MCAS and PARC. From my perspective, I think there's a need for standards. You need to have a consistent curriculum that's offered across the board. You need to be able to measure not only the students' progress, but also measure the effectiveness of the school system and the curriculum that the students are following. So, although there's a lot of controversy around it, I think there's a clear need because it lays a consistent foundation, and then it allows us to effectively manage or measure the effectiveness of the curriculum itself. So, the issue that I have with it, or the challenge that I have with it, is the pressure that's put on the students. And I think if you just focus on educating the student, providing them with the programs and services that they need, ultimately they're going to succeed academically. So I think we put a little bit too much pressure, a little bit too much weight on the testing, on the MCAS and the PARC, when we really should be focusing on providing a well-rounded curriculum. But again, that said, you still need to have those standards in place. You still need to be able to measure.
No, again, actually, I'll echo Joe's point. I mean, ultimately, Massachusetts has the most rigorous curriculum in the country. And initially, Massachusetts felt that our standards were above average to the point where we didn't need to have a program like Common Core. However, to Joe's point, standardized testing is required to benchmark the curriculum and what the kids are learning. However, again, to echo that, there is a lot of pressure with standardized testing, and I think in some cases you get away from traditional classroom teaching. I know, for example, I grew up with two school teachers as parents. My mother taught math at Bellingham High, my father taught science at King Philip for 40 years. So I got to see how the curriculum changed over time and how somebody who had what I would consider to be brick and mortar educational experience of traditional classroom teaching had to kind of conform to teaching more towards a standardized process or environment. However, again, I think we do need to find a blend between standardized and traditional so that you're not completely teaching to a standardized program.
Originally, well, first of all, I am a big fan of standardized testing. And originally, I was in favor of adopting Common Core. After doing some research, you will find that many of the districts that have adopted the Common Core are now having second thoughts about it and tossing it by the wayside. Standardized testing is the only way, the one and only way we can accurately compare the quality of the student we are turning out with the quality of student that other districts are turning out. Right now, I still have to do a little more research on the ultimate effects of Common Core, but I have leaned towards the other side now, and I am not a big fan of Common Core. Thank you.
I believe the kids get worked a lot today. Not like I grew up. There are too many tests today for them. Standard is probably the best way to go. I gotta research it more to see how it's affecting them more and listen to the kids talk. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Another question? Question? Eddie? Heidi, you have two questions? Nick has a question. Nicole, right in front of you.
This is the school committee. How come, I mean, for my, in the past, we've advertised
and advertised and advertised for supers and assistant supers. Now, all of a sudden, they're appointed overnight.
I, for one, was very disappointed to learn that our current school committee decided not to go out on the street, if you will, and see what was out there or who was available that might make a good superintendent for our schools. And they decided to, rather than do that, to hire right from within. Now, I'm not saying, I don't know much about the new superintendent, and he may be a very capable person, but I feel that we owed it to the people, we owed it to you, to the people that are sitting here today, to at least go out on the street and see what else was out there before we ended up hiring from within. For example, the Weston School District. Keep in mind, Weston School, rated number 6 in the state. They were looking for a new superintendent. They saw that school, the Weston School Committee, recognized the value in going out on the street to look for a new superintendent before they hired from within. Now, keep in mind, Weston had in place for the 6 months prior to hiring a new superintendent, they had in place a temporary superintendent who was doing a magnificent job. He was already in the system and doing a great job. In addition to that, they had at least 4 other candidates right in their system who could have slid right into the superintendent's job. However, they saw the value in going out on the street and at least seeing what else was out there. And we all know how that turned out. For those of you who don't know how that turned out, they ended up with our superintendent. So I am a big fan of it. I am not opposed to hiring from within, but before we do that, we need to see what else is out there. And if it means a little bit extra work to do that, well, I'm all for it. I don't mind doing a little extra work. Thank you.
I'm not opposed to hiring within. They got 2 fine candidates, but I would have went through the process. You got to go through the process to get everybody there to see who you have for the top candidate. Could have been somebody outside the box, even better than who we have there now. But I think that's how you have to do it in the future. Next time you got to get a superintendent, go through the process and make sure you get the top candidate for the job. Thank you.
So I guess I'll use this one for now. As a member of the current school committee, initially my thought process was let's open this up, let's do a search, and not because I didn't think we had a good candidate in place, but because I was worried about the public perception. But fortunately, when you look at the people that we have in place today in the Milford Public School System, there are 4 or 5 candidates that I could see becoming a superintendent someday. We're very, very fortunate, and that's a credit to Dr. Tremblay and the team that he's built around him. So early on in this process, one of the first things I did was reach out to the MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, to get their input, their feedback, and to get some guidance from them, because they go through this process and they help communities out throughout the entire state. And one of the first things they said was, do you have a strong internal candidate? And as I thought through it, I realized we probably have 4 or 5 really strong internal candidates. And they said that the best, from what they've seen from their experience, the best hires are typically your internal hires for a number of reasons. 1, you know exactly what you're getting. 2, it provides the greatest value. Mr. Visconti mentioned the Weston hire. Bob received a $50,000 raise to go to Weston. We can't afford to pay a superintendent $210,000, $220,000, so cost becomes a consideration as well. And then it also provides you with some continuity. Dr. McIntyre has been working in our district for 3 years now, so we've essentially been interviewing him for 3 years, and we know exactly what we're getting. And he's been working very closely with Dr. Tremblay, and it's going to provide us with the most seamless transition at a time when we're going through a lot of change. So we felt very strongly that Dr. McIntyre was the best hire for our district, and we didn't see the need to go out there and go through the show of interviewing candidates and going through that expense when we knew we had the right candidate for our district. So.
So without beating a dead horse on that, just the three components associated with going outside is one, there's a cost associated with conducting a national search for a superintendent. That's number one, but I think the two largest components are roadmap continuity. Kevin and Bob work very closely to, in a sense, co-manage the district. So having Bob, they did not. The roadmap nonetheless was established by both individuals. So I think having someone sliding into the number one slot as you lose Bob to Weston made sense. And then the second component of that is talent retention. So being able to continue to develop your high-performing folks within the district like Craig allow you to retain Craig and folks like him throughout the district.
Thank you, thank you. No debating.
Well, there was some mention of me, and I would like just a moment to rebut if I could.
I'm sorry, Mike, there's no debating.
I don't want to debate, I just want to make a statement.
Aida?
I don't know if I'm stepping out of bounds, but as a ex school committee man, Patrick, if you could answer that, because you have the most experience, and I feel.
So I agree with the decision to appoint internally, and there are a number of reasons for it. I think probably the biggest factor in my decision to support the hiring of Kevin McIntyre had to do with me having gone through the process of hiring what we call Director of Special Ed. So the school committee in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts does not have the responsibility of hiring very many people. The superintendent is one of them, the Director of Special Ed is another. And so these pools of candidates for both the superintendent's jobs and the directors of special ed, they tend to be very, very similar candidates. And so I had sort of been through the process before of hiring that director of special ed. And so I saw the pool of people who are not only applying for the special education director's jobs, but also for the superintendent's jobs across the Commonwealth. And so we went through the process, and it was a long process. I think it took us 8 or 10 weeks. We vetted all of the candidates, we interviewed all of these people. And so we sat down and we spent a Saturday, and we went through, I think, 6 or 8 interviews. And we'd interviewed all of these people, and some had some good points, and some didn't have some great points. And our very last interview was Meg Belcito. She was an internal candidate. And she was someone whose track record we knew, and who on paper looked like she might have been the least qualified candidate, right? So she was very strong with, she was very strong in all the areas she was very strong in all the areas that we needed, but she didn't have any experience being that director. And she blew us away. I mean, she was by far head and shoulders above any other person that we interviewed. And we decided right there, as soon as she was done, that this was the right person for our district. And so I think that sometimes you just have the right person there. And it was a very similar experience with Kevin McIntyre. You know, we knew working with him for 3 years, we knew what his track record was. We knew that we could go and do a statewide or nationwide search, and we get a whole bunch of people that on paper might look more qualified than Kevin McIntyre was. But we knew that he was the right guy for the job, and he was the person that could give us that continuity, because essentially, as Joe had said, we've been interviewing him already for 3 years. And so it doesn't always happen. It's not always the case that you have the right person in-house. It just happened to be, in this one instance, we really did have the right guy.
Thank you, thank you. Do I have any more questions? Mike, you'll have the opportunity to speak with everybody individually at the end of our forum. I did make the rules in the beginning. There are no debates. I apologize. I know you're dying to say something. Mike, every year you make me break the rules. I mean, come on. One statement, one fact.
We will never know.
We gotta keep some kind of order
Nobody at this
here.
table will ever know, and none of you will ever know if there is not a better candidate out there somewhere for our superintendent. That's a simple fact. That's not right.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Gail?
I have a question for Mr. Pellegrini. I agree with Brian that one of the best things that ever happened in this town is the walking trail. However, I have a real issue with the dogs. I'm not a dog lover. I am afraid of dogs. I admit that. However, when we're walking, and I think this is a dangerous thing, people walk along and they have the leash, but it's nowhere near the dog. You know, I think they're supposed to be connected. And yeah, and people will say, oh, he just wants to be friends with you. Right. I'm not buying that. Is there anything we can do about this?
That's why I don't have a dog. That's not I really don't know what the parks can do about that. That's more of a, I guess, a town issue, not a parks issue. I guess the best thing to do is maybe we bring it up to, you know, our local town administrator or whoever it might be, or the police, and, you know, just a kind of more of an enforcement of the law. Parks aren't intended to enforce any laws, or just to enforce the rules of our parks and our trails.
I just thought I'd ask.
Anita, when the treasurer's job came up, you...
Who's this question for? The selectmen? The selectmen, I guess. Two candidates.
Why did you go outside to get a replacement for the treasurer? Why didn't you take the assistant and come over?
I actually did vote to do that, and I was outvoted 2-1. We had interviewed candidates for that position. I felt that the assistant treasurer was the most qualified, and I supported her very vocally, but I was outvoted 2-1. And the person that was hired was an outside person, which in the years I was 12 years on the school committee and 15 years on the selectmen, had a number of positions to fill. You have to be very wary of interviews. There are some people who give dazzling interviews, but when time comes for the job, they're not really as good as what they said. Conversely, I can tell you, there was probably the worst interview that was ever experienced in mankind for an employee at the school department who, and I'm not going to name that individual, we still talk about it, probably one of the best and most dedicated town employees that we continue to have, but boy, it was a lousy interview. And if you went off of that interview, you would not have hired that person. So an interview is a very small part of the picture. You really need to do the background information. On superintendents, what we had done was site visits. When we picked the police chief, we did a site visit. So we went to the different departments. It gives you a whole different perspective on what this outside person is like. But on your particular question, I did support the treasurer, but I was outvoted 2-1.
Any other questions? Joni!
For the school committee, what do you have for bereavement counselors when a child in the school passes away, or to work, the teachers to work with these kids, and even if they lose a sibling or a parent at home, how do you deal with those? Are they professional counselors?
We do have professional counselors on staff, and unfortunately, last year we had to go through an issue where we lost a student at Shining Star, and it was a very difficult time, not only for classmates, but also for the entire staff. And so we brought in some counselors to work with some of the students, and the day of the funeral, they actually canceled school there to allow the staff and some students to attend. So it's a difficult thing to deal with, but we have an experienced staff to be able to handle some of those crises that come up.
Obviously, Mr. Marias, being a current school committee member, has a better insight onto what the policy is now with regard to counseling. But I believe that when it comes to counseling, whether it be bereavement or any other type of counseling, we need to go to people whose expertise is in counseling, and that's not necessarily any of the teachers. We need to go to people who are kept current of counseling procedures. So if I was elected to the school committee, I would push to have our bereavement or counselors or any other kind of counselor come in from the professional world outside and counsel, whether it be our students or counsel our teachers with respect to bereavement. Thank you.
I'm going to echo what Joe said. He's on there now. He knows him a little more. I believe they got the great staff up there deal with that stuff, so I echo that. Thank you.
I apologize, ma'am. I'm not close enough to the issue to be able to give you a full comment on that. I will echo Joe Marias' sentiments since he has been working for the last 3 years and has been through it personally.
Any other questions out there? Oh, this is great. You guys are awesome. These guys are the best.
I'm Bruce again, and I'm wondering, is there a law or bylaw in Milford about pick up after your pet? And if there isn't, can we get one?
Yeah, I don't know of any specific bylaw that talks about that. We do have the leash bylaw, where dogs have to be leashed. We do have the bylaw that dogs are prohibited from parks and other areas, although that's frequently violated. The exception is the bike trail. You know, I think what you're talking about, and I've seen it in other communities, they have stands set up with bags. I see more and more people doing it, picking up after their pets. It's only common sense. It's common courtesy. It's a little disappointing that, you know, you think you'd have to do a bylaw to do that kind of common sense, but I think it might be a little bit more outreach, more education to the populace. But, you know, one of the things, and I've just been dealing with it over the last few years because it seems as though more and more people are having dogs as pets. You know, it might be time for Milford to look at having a dog park. It really could be the kind of facility that would get used. You know, 10, 20 years ago, I don't know, I never heard of a dog park. But now that they're popping up, they're areas where dog owners can go. They're designed to handle. They've got the drainage and all the sort of things. So, you know, that might be something that really the town of Milford might want to look at. But in terms of that, you know, I would look towards general education, general outreach, and, you know, for the dogs on the trail that don't have on their leashes, you know, the owners need to be talked to. You know, that's not appropriate. But you're always trying to strike a balance between folks that are pet lovers and folks who aren't.
Yeah, we need a dog park, frankly, here in Milford. Medway has a dog park, beautiful dog park. Franklin has a dog park, and many of our residents leave town to go and bring their animals to those facilities. And so I think in town, I think that we do need those. I mean, we do have a leash law, we do have a registration law, and really you'd like to think that people are just polite enough not to let their dogs soil other people's yards. I mean, I have a dog, I walk my dog, and I always clean up after my dog, and I keep my dog on a leash. And it really is a common courtesy that you'd like to think that most people have, that if you have an animal, that you care for that animal. But I think one of the solutions is having a dog park, giving those animals a place to run, and giving those animals a place to congregate. I think would help the problem.
So after the dog park, we brought that up with the board to kind of reinitiate it. I know about 6 or 7 years ago, we tried to do that. We ran into some roadblocks with bylaws and dog parks. I am gathering information on that from Mike Bashani. But in the meantime, we have initiated a conversation with people from the Mass State who took over the land up where the old National Guard is. They have plenty of land up there. This is just something we're starting to look into. But we know it would be more of a community effort than a park effort. So as of right now, we've got the ball rolling on it. This is something our town definitely needs. I mean, you hear it more and more. It might alleviate some of the issues that you're referring to. If this is really a place for the dogs to go, then it might alleviate some of those issues.
I would like to thank all of my seniors. Thank you so much for coming out and all your great questions. I saw many of you making notes, so I think you got a great little audience here. I think they really paid attention, and you can count on their support. I'd like to invite all of you to stay after. We have coffee and pastry. You can speak to any one of you individually. If there's any other questions or comments you have for the candidates, I think that's a great time for those to be done with, okay? Thank you all for coming. I want to thank all the candidates for coming. I look forward to our election day. We are a voting poll here, so I hope to see all of the people in precinct 1 and 6 here. So again, thank you all for coming.